A fresh tomato or a rotten tomato? What to do with Aquaman 2? On the one hand, it's a solid family adventure film, but on the other hand, it's such an embarrassing ending to the DCEU. So I think I'm leaning towards Rotten Tomato because I really feel everyone involved should have known better. I mean, really, I wish the DCEU had ended on The Flash, a movie which at least feels like a DC movie. This is just a family adventure film with some DC names slapped on it. So yes, the DCEU ends not with a bang, nor even a whimper, but a chuckle. And the question is, though, is Aquaman 2 having fun? Or is that chuckle Aquaman 2 being laughed at? Well, the answer is it depends on where you're coming from. If you're a DC fan, or if you've even enjoyed, DCEU fan, or if you've even enjoyed some of those movies just a little, you can appreciate that Aquaman 2 is just having fun. A little too much fun, but whatever. However, if you have come to hate the DCEU with a passion, Zack Snyder's DC, then you will laugh at this movie with glee because James Wan makes some unfortunate choices himself and allows some other people, largely Jason Momoa, to make some unfortunate choices as well. Basically this movie lets Jason Momoa be Jason Momoa. And you might recall when I reviewed the first Aquaman, a movie that I loved, which made $1 billion, the only DCEU movie to do so. But I applauded James Wan for reining in both Momoa and Amber Heard, reining in their B or maybe even C movie tendencies. And in the process, both those actors rose to the occasion, and Aquaman, the first Aquaman, was a proper blockbuster. But for the sequel, Jason Momoa is allowed, again, as I said, to go full Jason Momoa, which is fine. I wouldn't say never go full Jason Momoa, but it's okay if you're making a family adventure movie, not Aquaman 2. So I would tell you to adjust your expectations for this sequel. It's more Jumanji or Journey to the Center of the Earth. Basically, it's a Dwayne Johnson rock movie, which is hilarious because, of course, he wanted to take over the DCEU. But as I said, it's basically a really solid, I wouldn't say amazing, but it's a really solid family adventure movie. So yes, so help me, I enjoyed it, at least the first 2/3. I thought the first 2/3 were actually really good because to me, take that with it, it plays like a Saturday morning cartoon. I'm not saying it's an amazing movie or a great movie, but it's a fun movie. It felt very much like a live action Saturday morning cartoon. Jason Momoa, Patrick Wilson, a whole lot of Randall Park. Oh boy, big set pieces and lots of action. Pour yourself a bowl of cereal. It was fun. In fact, I'm tempted to tell you on that note to maybe wait to watch the movie on digital or Max. Not just because it plays like a Saturday morning cartoon and you can watch it in the morning or during the day with a giant bowl of cereal, but because at my press screening, this was frustrating. People laughed at the movie. For instance, every time they brought up basically the Atlantean version of Unobtainium. And I'm talking laughed every single time they brought it up throughout the entire movie. It's like, we get it. You think it's stupid. How about letting the rest of us enjoy the movie? And Warner Brothers, by the way, also forced us to watch it in 3D. And for the first 5 minutes or so, it was kind of cool. When the logo came up, I was like, ooh, 3D. But they never did anything with the 3D. And in fact, after about 5 minutes, I forgot I was watching. After those first 5 minutes, I forgot the movie was in 3D. You're like, didn't you have 3D glasses on? Well, they're light, they're plastic. Sometimes I wear glasses. So my brain just forgot that I was watching a 3D movie. Although when I think back on it, I think the depth to the visuals, at least made it a little more interesting, let's say. So I wouldn't pay extra for the 3D, but if you're an AMC A-list or you have a Regal Unlimited card or one of those subscription services where it doesn't cost you anything more to upgrade, why not? It makes it, as I said, a little more interesting, maybe a little richer. Also, I don't know what it's like when it's not in 3D. It could make the movie awful. So I'm just telling you what my experience was like, and my experience included 3D. And they had the brightness up pretty high. So it never, sometimes when you have 3D, the movie comes across the visuals as, darker and murkier. Not the case here. It was still a very bright, colorful film. And is the Unobtainium or whatever, I forgot what it was called. It's like Oricrom or something. Was it really that stupid? It kind of was that stupid, but we let Avatar get away with it. I remember when Giovanni Ribisi first said Unobtainium, which is actually a real term. But when he first said that in Avatar, I rolled my eyes, but I didn't laugh and ruin the movie for everyone around me. I mean, come on, be cool. Also, Aquaman 2, as promised, is about protecting the environment. That's a part of the movie. But understandably, Warner Brothers Discovery didn't want to get in a big old fight with the oil industry or any other industry that pollutes, so they had to come up with a fictional super pollutant. I mean, that makes sense when you think about it. I think maybe if everyone hadn't said it so seriously, like to have like Nicole Kidman saying it, I mean, that's kind of what made it a little funny at parts. So I wish they had, handled it a little bit better. But I mean, as I said, I didn't mind everyone's ridiculously bad wet wigs. Even Patrick Wilson, I think, was wearing a wig. Even when he had short hair, I think that was a wig. I was like, why? And the only time the movie did cross the line for me was in the third act, when it tried to switch to dramatic and serious, but just couldn't after an hour and a half of being light and silly. A lot of Aquaman screaming for his family, and I was like, that just is ridiculous. So at that point, I just started to feel sorry for the movie. I started to feel sorry for everyone involved in it, and also for DC fans in general. It was just sad. That's more how I would describe the last third of the movie. It was just sad. So by the end, Aquaman 2 is sort of depressing. And when it ends mimicking a famous MCU moment, why was Jason Momoa allowed to do that? Even in jest, I'd be like, we can't end the DCEU that way. Have some dignity. And by the way, speaking of dignity, there is an end credit scene, which is just a joke from the movie, and you can kind of tell what part of the joke is going to be, but then they decide to revisit one of the worst jokes in the film. And for that to be the final moment in the DCEU, again, have some dignity. I can't believe nobody brought that up. Part of the people who work at Warner Brothers today must hate the DCEU and Zack Snyder's DC to allow that. I would think someone would step in and be like, we just can't do this to ourselves. So let's talk, though, about what I did like, because I said there's a lot here to like. Burning questions that I know you have. No, Amber Heard does not have a surprisingly large role in the movie. I don't know how this rumor started at the last minute when the movie started to open overseas. Somebody must have been trolling. Because as I reported, she was cut down to about 10 minutes in the movie, and that is still the case. It might seem like more to some people because those 10 minutes are sprinkled throughout the entire film. But she's got like 5 lines, like if that. She's really just there to use her powers. And really, and also because she's the mother of Aquaman's baby, Junior. Give that kid a name. That was also one of the sillier parts of it. They started, they didn't really use his name in the beginning of the movie, but towards the end they were like, where's Junior? Did they take Junior? And you're like, Junior? Really? Like, wow. And that baby, by the way, has a bigger role than Amber Heard. And no, they don't go too far with the baby in danger storyline. I mean, again, it did get overly dramatic and really I guess silly in a bad way, but I didn't find it offensive or anything like that. There were rumors that people were walking out of the test screenings, and some of us in the Scoop community thought that because of the storyline in the comics with Aquaman's baby, maybe it was the baby storyline that made them say, oh, we can't do this. But now that I've seen the movie, I wouldn't walk out over the baby storyline, and I can't think of any reason to walk out of this movie, although it has been significantly reworked. So, maybe at one point it was offensive, but it's not offensive now. So yeah, no, it's not an unwatchable, horrible movie. If you liked the DCEU, or even a DC fan in general, and are cool with fun Saturday morning cartoons, you will enjoy this movie. I would say that Aquaman 2 is for comic book fans and families, particularly with younger skewing children. The movie is rated PG-13, and my guess is because of some of the blood and that a baby is in danger. And yeah, there's like a seedy nightclub for criminals, but nothing like you haven't seen in Star Wars. And it's kind of a Star Wars ripoff, come to think of it. But really, it's all pretty tame. I honestly feel anyone could watch this movie. Even a baby! Arthur could take his baby to this movie and the baby would be like, that was fun. The baby would probably really like this movie. That's the kind of movie it is. If you have a 10 or under kid, as long as you think they're okay with a little bit of cartoon violence, I think they'd have a good time. Honestly, one of the things that made me really like this movie is that Randall Park is in it so much. I love Randall Park. He's fantastic. And he's in the movie, his character is being forced to work for Black Manta, and he's given a surprising amount to do. I loved having him here. It was like having Paul Rudd in Civil War. Park just is such an unexpected ingredient for a movie like this, for a superhero movie, and he keeps it real. He said things that you and I would say in the movie, and that was so fun. It just makes the whole thing a lot more fun. Also, Johnny Zhao from Portugal is Black Manta's second in command, and she is super cool. I loved her. Really, Black Manta's whole squad was pretty awesome. They are really good, effective bad guys. Like right out of a Saturday morning cartoon. I love them. How about Black Manta himself? Well, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is always good, although I worry about his future as Wonder Man when he's been in this movie, because I think people are going to be not kind to this film. But it helps his character that he has a legit reason for being upset with Aquaman. Aquaman killed his dad. What's with these movies, by the way? You know, the Marvels did it too, having flashbacks to previous films and actually putting the footage in there. You know, like in Star Wars, when they were talking about Luke Skywalker, they're like spoilers for Star Wars. They said, like when Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father, they didn't then cut to the scene in The Empire Strikes Back where that unfolded to remind you. I mean, make people go watch the original movie or just reference it. I mean, I don't like that trend. But yeah, Aquaman did kill his dad. And they did something interesting with that, by the way, which this is the non-spoiler review, so we can't discuss it here. But Black Manta's suit, by the way, is also still super comics accurate and super cool. I love it. And those beams pack even more of a punch this time. He left a lot of people smoldering. If they were an Atlantean, they'd be dead. And I thought that was awesome. I mean, too often in comics and movies, characters get hit with a laser beam and they're hardly even singed, if at all. They just pop right back up. They're like, Cyclops? That's who I'm talking about. Although I don't know if Cyclops would hurt anybody. Black Manta was really hurting people. But again, it's pretty tame. It's PG-13. And I liked the fights. I mean, sure, some of them might have been entirely CGI, but for the most part, sometimes I could tell. But for the most part, I couldn't tell. A lot of good moves with the trident. I was like, ooh, that's a cool way to use a trident. And some real brawls. Aquaman has an impressive reach, and this Aquaman loves to fight. Like, really, really loves it. And his joy transfers to us, the audience. So the fight sequences are a lot of fun to watch. So how about the good guys? I don't know how Jason Momoa is going to switch to playing Lobo for James Gunn, because he's already basically playing Lobo for James Wan. Yes, his Aquaman acts so much like Lobo, especially in this movie, that I don't see how they could move forward with him being Lobo anywhere else, because it's just going to seem like the same. I really, really advise against it, because it should be a clean break. All right, but while Jason Momoa is his silly self in a heck of a lot of the scenes, he's also grounded in some of them. Kind of like Jason Momoa in real life. He's got, he's silly, but then sometimes he gets real, which provides a nice balance and allows you to connect with the character still. The bonding in the film between fathers and sons, generationally, and brothers is very nice, and I liked that element of the film a lot. Temuera Morrison has some really nice scenes as Arthur's father, and he and Momoa seem to genuinely connect. Patrick Wilson as Orm, Aquaman's half-brother, is great here. I mean, he's basically playing Loki to Momoa's Thor. And at one point, I wouldn't have done this, Momoa even jokingly calls him Loki. Again, as I said, have some dignity. I guess because Loki's, in parody, you could reference anything, but I guess Loki's in the public domain. The Norse god. There are some good gags about Orm not having really spent any time on the surface. And then, as I said, there are some really bad gags about Orm not having spent any time on the surface. Like Loki, Orm transitions from villain to anti-hero, but it took Loki like over a decade to fully evolve. But with Orm, at least for me, he's a little too good, a little too quickly. Wilson is excellent, though, balancing out Momoa's vibe, and he does a nice job with his action sequences, too. And there's one moment where he flirts with being a villain again, and the look on Patrick Wilson's face is so delicious that you wish that he actually did go back to being a villain. You're like, wow, that's fantastic. Are there any women in this movie? A lot of dudes. I mean, Amber Heard and Nicole Kidman were a big part of what made the first movie so good. And they're both back again, but they both have much smaller roles. Their looks, though, particularly Mira's dress in court, gorgeous, are still on point. And they have the most to do in an Act 1 action sequence in Atlantis. I mean, they're basically CGI doubles, but they looked really cool. I didn't care. Again, I didn't care. I was like, that looks cool. And Mira's powers are too cool to totally bench her. But she still does spend a lot of time on the bench. And for some reason, while the VFX in the first movie with Mira were so flawless that everyone was saying, look, it's live action Ariel, here they look weird and often make Heard look distorted. The thing I noticed most about Nicole Kidman's performance was how raspy her voice is. She sounds like Harrison Ford in Dial of Destiny. I was like, get that woman a glass of water. But hey, at least she has lines. Now, how about the sea creatures? Topo! You know, a lot of people at my screening laughed at Topo as well, which I thought was really uncool. I mean, he was a field agent for Atlantis, which is kind of Spy Kids like. You know, it's a lot to ask adults to swallow. But obviously, those people have never watched the multiple videos on the internet about octopus moving through mazes, escaping from traps, etc. Because octopi are actually incredibly smart and very agile. And I thought it was actually a cool idea to make one of them a field agent, even though the execution was only medium. There's also Aquaman seahorse Storm, who's very pretty, but it's total CGI. Well, obviously, but it's not at all believable. And then during the credits, I was kind of on my phone waiting to see if there were any end credit scenes. And again, there's one joke one. But then out of the corner of my eye, I saw Martin Short. And I was like, what? And so I looked it up later, and Martin Short does indeed voice Kingfish. And you know what? Watching the movie, I never would have guessed that was Martin Short doing the voice. So why pay for Martin Short? I mean, I guess it was a little robust and jokier than I would have expected, but I had no idea it was Martin Short. I'd be like, you know, do you want me to see Martin Short's in the voice booth being like, should I disguise my voice? And I'd be like, why would you? I'm paying for Martin Short. Let's hear Martin Short. So what's Aquaman 2 about? Well, you don't even really need to know. In fact, I would encourage you not to know, because one of the few joys of the film is seeing the story unfold. And again, as I said, it's a very Saturday morning cartoon. There's flashbacks and vendettas and bonding and lessons learned, both for you personally that you can apply to your actual life, and real world broad lessons, like protect the environment, kids. The whole thing's very Captain Planet, which, yeah, is kind of lame, but kids apparently love that. I mean, I think that I wish that someone had said to James Wan and company, I mean, then maybe this is the best they could do to fix it, but I wish they had said, you know, largely adults watch these movies, right? They're the driving force behind them. Why are you making a movie for little kids? But that's what they did. And, you know, and if you can be a kid at heart, you'll find the joy in it, where, you know, at least in the first 2/3. I also liked, speaking of messages toward the end, that when it was said that Aquaman was actually a good king of Atlantis, one of the reasons given was that he wasn't afraid to ask for help. And I thought that was a real nice lesson. I liked that. So yeah, if you're interested in watching Aquaman 2, like at all, you should go, right? But if you're not interested in going, please stay away from the movie. Don't ruin the experience for others. Let DCEU fans say goodbye in peace. So that's my non-spoiler review for Aquaman 2, in theaters right now, or later today, depending where you live. So share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.